QuickBooks Pro Plus Desktop 2022 OneNote presentation, company preferences, reminders and reports and graphs. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Plus Desktop 2022. If you have access to OneNote, would like to follow along, icon left-hand side, topic introduction 6180, company preferences, reminders and reports and graphs. Also take a look at the immersive reader tool. Topic introductions also in the text area, same name, same number, but with transcripts. Transcripts that can be translated into multiple languages, either listened to or read in them. Same name and number as presentation as well. Topic introductions designed to give an introduction to the topic. Provide screenshots, links when applicable, accounting background to complement the presentations. These can also be used to follow along with the presentations if you don't have access to the software at that time. Closing the icon on the left-hand side, starting out by going to the Edit drop-down, down to the Preferences once again. Within the Preferences, we're in the Reminders. First side, My Preferences, showing the option of Show Reminders List when opening a company file, off by default. Then we're going to go to the Company Preferences, and we have our list of reminders. I'm not going to go into them in detail here, just noting, however, that these are often good reminders by default. But when you're working a practice problem that's in the past or the future, some of the reminders can be burdensome and therefore often worth turning off for that purpose. And or if you're in a situation where you're entering a whole year's worth of data, for example, and not working in real time, the reminders there too can be a burdensome problem, and it might be worth going into the reminders, turning them off so that you can do your work more quickly. We got the reports and graphs. We're looking at the My Preferences tabs. These are basically all the default settings, so we haven't really changed anything here, which are prompt me to modify report options before opening a report, reports and graphs. When a report or graph needs to be refreshed, prompt me to refresh automatically. Don't refresh. This is the default setting. Graphs only, draw graphs in 2D, which is faster, but we keep it off as the default settings. Use patterns, and that is off as the default setting. Reports and graphs, company preferences. These are pretty much all the default settings. Summary report basics. We're going to have an accrual basis. I strongly recommend using the accrual basis, even if you want to use a cash basis for your data input. If you got questions about that, we will explain it in more depth in the presentations. But again, that's my strong recommendation. Age in reports, age from due date, age from transaction date, that's the default setting. Reports show items by name only, description only, name and description, that being last, the default setting. Collapse transactions, so we're going to keep that off as the default settings. The collapsing, as it says down here, select the checkbox to combine, collapse multiple items in a transaction into a single line. This will cause some reports to take longer to run, but you can possibly have more items that would be in place, so you can experiment with that if it would be useful for you. Reports show accounts by name only, description only, name and description. So we have the name only, that is the default settings. Statement of cash flows, click here to assign accounts to sections of the statement of cash flows. We're going to go into this a little bit more depth when we look at the statement of cash flows report. But if you click on this item, it'll give you some options for assigning the categories related to the statement of cash flows. And the default formatting for reports here is checked off. If you click on that item, here's basically the categories of the cash flow statement. If you're familiar with it, you got the operating sections, the investing section, the financing section, and in essence, the difference between the balances on the balance sheet can be used to create a statement of cash flows. And you can change basically operating, investing, or financing by checking off these items.